Yeah, I'm still buttoning my shirt.
So right now, we're the 9th and 10th grade humanities class of Think Global School.
Well, right now you are in Athens, Greece. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you spend a term in a different country every year?
Yes, we do.
The humor part of it is kind of interesting because in rhetoric, making people smile makes them more persuadable. It's a state that neurologists and psychologists call cognitive ease. And in cognitive ease, people feel like they're in control, they're comfortable. Making them laugh is a great way to put people into cognitive ease. And that was deliberate. I wanted people to smile so that they'd absorb some of this stuff without getting mad at me about all the manipulation and stuff. Does that answer your question, Danielle?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
That was a great one. I've never been asked that before.
My name is Jonah, and I was just curious. So, can you has rhetoric sort of been incorporated into your into the way you look at things now? So, for example, can you go through watching TV without pointing out different rhetoric devices or like different ways they're trying to manipulate you or whatever?
Yes, I'm the most annoying TV watcher on earth. And not only that, but I'm the guy who gets snacks during the show and come back for the commercials because I have more fun watching the ads than I do the shows themselves. I mean, that's the cool thing about rhetoric. Once you guys have gotten all the way through the book, I'd like to hear back from you and see whether this has changed your own TV watching, because ads get much more interesting when you know rhetoric, because you want to see how these advertisers are manipulating you.
I just wanted to ask, do you think that some rhetorical devices are better suited for like a more powerful and bigger, say, speech, and then some rhetorical devices are more suited for like just trying to get an extension on your homework?
With speaking with an audience, that's formal rhetoric. That's more logical. With a relationship, what you're trying to do is express a kind of image, make them feel good about you, and at the same time change their emotions, put them in a better mood, right? So get rid of their anger and have them love you. Those are the tools that you're going to be using. And as you go through the book, you're going to see them. The three basic tools of rhetoric are ethos, which is your character. You've been through this part? Okay. So that's what character is most important in a relationship. Although also expressing somebody who's likable and trustworthy is important when you're giving a speech as well. And then there's pathos. What's that? What's pathos?
Emotions.
Emotions, right. And then logos, which is the rational, logical side of rhetoric. And logos is more important actually when you're giving a speech generally than when you're just chatting with somebody one-on-one. Does that make sense? And if you want to lead the world, man, rhetoric is the way to do it.
Thanks a lot.
I'm not sure I convinced you. You're a skeptical guy.
So, sorry, you might not even know the answer to this, but you mentioned before, like, the impasse that Congress is at right now. So looking at it from a perspective of, like, because you took a lot of care to differentiate arguments and fights in a few of the chapters. So looking at it from that sort of perspective, how could that impasse be resolved?
What's happening, I think, in Congress is not just in Congress, but in the United States in general, and the world really in general. And that's tribalism. Tribalism is a natural instinct. It's how we killed off all those nasty Neanderthals, who turned out to be artists and painters and poets, probably. But we beat them by forming our own tribes and being very loyal among our own set of people, right? So that's our instinct to do that. Certain kinds of rhetoric bring people together and make them feel closer and let them do things in common, and that's not such a bad thing all the time. The problem is that when we form enemies. So certain kinds of rhetoric lead to fighting between people who think they're from different tribes. Speaking in the present tense, and this is something that's really important in the book, is a way to enhance tribalism, because the present tense is about values. Values are the glue that keep groups of people or tribes together. In the meantime, now, these days, what's happening in a place like Congress is that everybody's talking about values. And they're not talking about actually fixing things. Aristotle said that political rhetoric has to do with the future because that's what choices affect. The only cure I know of is for people to be aware of rhetoric and being able to understand how to ingratiate themselves with people, how not to just yell at people from another tribe, but make people believe that you're one of them, and get them to think a little bit differently, change their moods and their minds, and then maybe they'll be willing to act a little bit differently. You asked a very important two-part question, and you did it very well. The cure for bad rhetoric is for everybody to know rhetoric. As many people as possible. It's much harder to manipulate you if you can spot the tools. So I actually think that watching the ads on TV are a very useful exercise because they will make you a more powerful, less manipulated person. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned the dark part of rhetoric because it was something that really bothered the ancient Greeks and Romans. An ancient Roman named Quintilian, who's one of the people who really put together rhetoric as an education, said that the orator, the leader, was a good man speaking well. In those days, women weren't supposed to speak in public, so you could translate that as an orator is a good person speaking well. And it's interesting that he stipulated that it has to be a good person, because a bad person speaking well can be just as effective. But for rhetoric to be a force of good, obviously, good people have to be able to use it. So, as you know, when my kids were growing up, I would, if they did something naughty, I'd say, I wouldn't just say to them, this is bad and you shouldn't do it. I would say, if you ever try anything again, I'm not going to trust you. It's not just wrong, this is ruining your reputation. And you're never going to be able to ask for a cookie again because I'm going to think you might steal it next time. So my kids grew up thinking that the way people perceived of them was important. I mean, I wanted them to be good people. But that's the other thing that's sort of the self-controlling divisive rhetoric. If you are nasty and you manipulate people too obviously too often for bad things that hurt them, they're not going to trust you. These days we have social media to do that for us. It's a little bit trickier, but it's as if we've all turned into one small, annoying town. Does that answer your question? I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, the hard part is there is no really good answer, right? As I'm sure you recognize. That it's like, I like to say that rhetoric doesn't hurt people, people hurt people.
Thank you so much, Jay. Just to wrap this up, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us on behalf of TGS. I know we really appreciated it and we really learned a lot, so thank you.
Aisha, you are an absolutely terrific host. You could do this as a career.
No, this isn't an argument.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. It's just contradiction.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It is not.